The other day, I predicted the top 24 picks in 2025 fantasy football drafts, and it's important to know as we go through these top 50 rankings initially for 2025 that this is completely the opposite of what I did the other day by predicting what I thought was going to happen, not what I would personally do. This video more accurately predicts what I would do in 2025 fantasy football. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first here, I want to start off with these 5 names because I don't really feel like there's going to be anybody who's going to be a completely dominant player above all else, at least is what I can tell right now. Ja'Marr Chase at 1, Saquon Barkley at 2, Jahmyr Gibbs at 3, Bijan at 4, and CeeDee Lamb at 5. Now again, I want to highlight all these guys here because I believe that all 5 of these guys could easily be the best player in fantasy football in 2025. Ja'Marr Chase, for the obvious reason, nothing changes with Joe Burrow. The guy was dominant last year. He's been dominant for basically his whole career. Nothing is changing. Saquon Barkley, another year older, so I don't have quite as much confidence with Saquon Barkley. But of course, he's still in this tier because of what he did last year. The offensive line being the same. The Philadelphia offense still being very high-powered and completely run first. So there's no question Saquon could be a great player again in fantasy. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, interchange these if you want to. I feel pretty good about having Jahmyr Gibbs as my current RB2 because I believe that Detroit will become a little bit more tunnel visioned with their fantasy options this year. Sans Ben Johnson, I don't think that their next offensive coordinator is going to be able to provide all of these weapons with great fantasy upside. I think the big 3 between Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta are going to be the big 3, and everybody else will kind of be fighting for scraps. And then CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb is also in really good shape here. Because if you remember what Dak Prescott and him can do together, that's special. Like, him and CeeDee Lamb are really good together. So I don't have any issue with having CeeDee Lamb inside this tier here over Justin Jefferson, over Puka Nacua, because people will remember by like week 5 this year when Dak and him are really slinging it, that CeeDee Lamb is really good with Dak. And even without Dak, he was really good. He could be elite this year. That's my elite tier. Now getting into our next tier right here. Also a great tier in here as well. Puka Nacua at 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7, Justin Jefferson at 8, Josh Jacobs at 9, and Brock Bowers at number 10. Brock Bowers is the guy that I want to highlight here the most because I did say this in the video where I was predicting what the top 24 picks were going to be like in 2025 drafts. What I said in that video was that I think that when we get closer to draft day, Brock Bowers will be a first-round pick in basically every single draft because of the uniqueness of the tight end position and the clear upside and like dominance that he adds at that position that nobody else will add. Trey McBride is the tight end too, but he is nowhere close to Brock Bowers' upside. I believe that Brock Bowers is going to be elite this year. Geno Smith, quarterback upgrade. The Raiders in general are definitely a team on the rise. I think Brock Bowers is still the future of this passing offense and the current of this passing offense. He's going to be a top 10 guy this year. Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. I've already had complaints about my ranking with Justin Jefferson this year. I'm used to it at this point. I love Justin Jefferson. It has nothing to do with the player. It has everything to do with the fact that this is his second straight year now. He's switching quarterbacks. And by the way, this current quarterback right here doesn't have a history of throwing 30, 35 plus times per game. The guy came from Michigan's offense where they were using him like 20 to 25 at most times per game. That was a run-first team. Minnesota is going to want to get the most out of him, and I don't know if he can deliver on that. Of course, JJ is still worth a first-round pick, a top 5 pick in probably many people's eyes. I won't argue with you, but that is a definite personal preference for me. I'd rather have Puka Nacua with Matt Stafford and Amon-Ra St. Brown with Jared Goff. And then Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is severely underdrafted for the second straight season. In fact, Underdog just opened up Best Ball Mania. I've already gotten in on 4 of those drafts. That's a $2 million prize the first, $1 million the second. And I'm telling you right now, Josh Jacobs will be a staple pick for me because the guy is still being drafted in like the 3rd round. It makes no sense whatsoever. Josh Jacobs is going to be a great player once again. Now, dropping out to our next tier right here. We've got a lot of good names in here as well, but I think things start to get a little bit more uncertain for obvious reasons. Achan at 11, Genty at 12. I want to highlight those two guys in particular right now because of the fact that with Achan, there's clearly going to be conversations about how he won the draft, and the Vikings and the Dolphins didn't really do anything to, counteract Achan and the upside that he could bring. It's not about that for me. For me, it's mostly about the fact that Achan is going to be a boomer bust player, and he provides tons of upside when Tua is there. Now, of course, Tua not being there is just as easily of a possibility as him being there. But I'm going to stick with him and the upside that he can bring, and I think it's more than Genty. Call me crazy. I think Genty is going to be a really solid pick. I'm not disgracing anybody for wanting to take him in the first round. I think he will be a first round pick. And I do think that he's on the border for me of being worth it right now. He's going to get tons of volume with this Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly offense, and it's going to be really inefficient. The question is, can he get in the end zone? And can the Raiders improve that much offensively to give him red zone opportunities? I think that's the question. I've got more hope for Achan's upside year one than I do for Genty's, but you can really order those two how you want, but this is a clear answer for me. Then we've got a run of wide receivers end off this tier. Nico Collins at 13, Rashee Rice at 14, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. Nico Collins, going to be fine. Texans went heavy on wide receiver in the draft. I think that was mostly a sign of their depth behind Nico Collins. Christian Kirk, definitely on his way out of the NFL at this point. Tank Dell, probably not going to play in 2025 at the very least. So they had to fill some depth behind Nico Collins. This has nothing to do with Nico Collins not being a great player. The guy's on a super expensive deal. He's came through for them. He will continue to come through for them. Rashee Rice, don't forget about it. In fact, I'm going to end with Rashee Rice here because I like him over Malik Neighbors and over Brian Thomas Jr. Malik Neighbors still has quarterback issues. I'm not saying he's a bad pick, but he definitely has quarterback issues I'm still concerned with. And then Brian Thomas Jr. is in a situation where you have to at least question what level of upside will he have with Travis Hunter there now. His upside could potentially be capped. I'm not saying that Brian Thomas Jr. won't be the wide receiver one. He will be, 100%. 100%. But the question really comes to Travis Hunter, if they're going to use him as much as they want to in the offensive side of the ball, he will take away from Brian Thomas Jr.'s work at least some of the time. So you have to move him down in your rankings, in my opinion, below Rashee Rice. And I said this already earlier this offseason. Rashee Rice is going to be one of those guys that people will forget about. And again, I've drafted him so much on Underdog already. Rashee Rice, I'll give people credit. I think drafters and ADP setters on Underdog and on Sleeper and every other platform are factoring in the potential of a suspension. Obviously, you have to do that, but there's been reports that he may not end up getting suspended, and I'm telling you right now, I'm willing to take the shot on him. He's the wide receiver 22 on Underdog right now. That price is unbelievable. And like I said, you get into one of these best ball tournaments, Best Ball Mania particularly, you're talking about a $2 million payout, $1 million payout to second place, $500,000 for third. You can see the prize breakdown here. You want to go for upside. Well, this upside here for Rashee Rice right now, it's insane. And I guarantee you the closer we get, and if he's not suspended, that price is going up. So to take advantage of it right now, just go down in the comments, grab the link that's there, use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. When you use that code FFN, all you have to do is just deposit your money however much you want to. They'll match that first deposit, 50% up to $1,000, and then you get into one of these drafts, have the opportunity to win yourself some big money. I won $19,000 playing Underdog Best Ball last year, so obviously I love Underdog, and I know that you will too, so give yourself a chance at that big money. So dropping down to our next tier right here. I like Kyren Williams still a lot at the 17th spot. Kyren Williams is going to be a really good player in fantasy again. There's no question. They did add another running back. Again, I think it's an indictment more so on Blake Corum than it is for Kyren Williams. The guy is still, being discussed as a potential extension candidate over there in Los Angeles. They're looking to extend the guy. So I think that he's going to be a factor in this offense, just like he was last year, which was a great fantasy player. Drake London at 18. Christian McCaffrey at 19, Derrick Henry at 20, Jonathan Taylor at 21. You know, this tier of guys right here, I think outside of Kyron, honestly, I could put Kyron in that tier above them because I don't have as much confidence with the rest. Now, I like Drake London a lot. I think Drake London will end up being good with Michael Penix, but there obviously is that factor in there with that window of doubt, which is, you know, how good is Michael Penix? We don't really know. We got like 6 games from the guy in 2024. I think he'll be good. Drake London proved himself last year. I'm really happy with it. Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry are easily 2 of the hardest guys to rank right now in fantasy football for very obvious reasons. These 2 guys could either really, really boom or really, really bust because Henry's at the age, over 30 now, and McCaffrey is close to 30 and has already been banged up a lot more than Derrick Henry. Apparently, McCaffrey has no injury concerns. That's good, but that will ultimately raise his price more and more as we get closer to drafts. So in all likelihood, I'm probably not going to be drafting too much of either of these guys, as much as I would draft a Jonathan Taylor who had no offensive changes. His offensive line is still good. He's still clearly the top dog in Indianapolis, and they will be a run-first team. I'd rather take Jonathan Taylor in drafts over those 2 running backs. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here. I really like this tier as well. There's a lot of names in here that you're going to see and be like, yeah, these are good values in drafts right now if you're going on underdog. James Cook at 22. Start out with him. James Cook is clearly in a peculiar situation, I guess, is the word that I just thought of, because he's in this contract dispute right now. He's not reporting to, voluntary workouts. This looks like it could be heading towards a hold-in situation here. So obviously it's ideal if the Bills are able to get him extended before training camp so he can come in, be fresh, not be an injury, prone guy because he hasn't played or practiced at all before the start of the season. That's the ideal part. So the longer this holdout continues, he'll move down my rankings, but he's at 22 for now. Then we've got our quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen at 23 and 24. I slightly prefer Lamar, but these are super interchangeable. They're both obviously elite upside guys that can get you 400 plus points. I don't think we need to discuss them. I love these 2 running backs. Chase Brown at 25 and Kenneth Walker at 26. Chase Brown, huge winner in the draft. They draft Taj Brooks in like the 7th round, I think, so he's not being threatened right now. Zach Moss is not threatening Chase Brown. He will be the focal point of this run game and will get tons of work still through the air in Cincinnati as well. He's going to be a really good fantasy player, and I think a probably really good value for basically the whole offseason. Kenneth Walker is one of my favorite early values in best ball drafts. The guy's being drafted basically in the 4th, 5th round, and I love this price. Kenneth Walker has already been talked up by the new offensive coordinator over there, Clint Kubiak, who says we're going to ask a lot out of Kenneth Walker. I am big on Kenneth Walker. He's one of my favorite guys to draft an underdog right now. So yes, he will be above consensus for me at 26. Dropping out to our next tier right here. Another good tier. I like these guys. There's some question marks in here. Jackson Smith-Njigba is at 27, right above Trey McBride at 28. And I got to tell you, I think with Jackson Smith-Njigba, my only concern really lies with Sam Darnold, right? I think a lot of people are coming to understand this as well, which is that Sam Darnold he's totally boom or bust for them. They get Jalen Milroe, but it's not like they've got an accurate quarterback behind them. Now, what I like about JSN and what ultimately keeps me on the loop with him is that he's such a great route runner. He's a quarterback's best friend, similar to a Keenan Allen when he was like that with Phillip Rivers, who didn't exactly have the biggest arm. I think he will be that for Sam Darnold here. Even though Darnold has a really big arm, I think he'll be able to be a really good player in fantasy still. Trey McBride, obviously, the touchdown issue last year was one thing, but I think really the biggest thing for me with Trey McBride is I just can't trust Kyler super well. No question he's the tight end too, but I don't think that you should be drafting him above these running backs that were in the previous tier above him or a quarterback. I think that he's clearly the tight end too, not anywhere close to Brock Bowers, and also not particularly close to the tight end 3 who we'll discuss here in a couple tiers. And I like A.J. Brown at 29. This is as early as I can take the guy. I think that if you have people in your draft and you know guys in your league still like A.J. Brown, you let him take him. because he's going to be a higher pick than this. I'm basically out on taking A.J. Brown at this point, but I obviously still think he's going to have some fantasy boom games for sure. I just don't think he's going to be consistent very much. Bucky Irving at 30, Amari and Hampton at 31, Jayden Daniels at 32, and Breece Hall at 33 to round us out in this tier. Bucky Irving is getting tons of respect, as he deserves. Still a little bit worried with another offensive coordinator change in Tampa Bay. What do they want to do? Clearly, he's the better running back between him and Rachaad White. That's not what I'm worried about here. I'm just a little worried about what this offense is going to look like compared to what it looked like last year with Liam Cohen. That's the only question I really have. Amari and Hampton is going to be, in my opinion, going to be better in the second half of the season than he is the first half. Not because they're going to start Najee. Like, I believe Hampton will be starting from day one. They drafted him in the first round for a freaking reason. This guy's going to start for them. I think that as we get further into the season, though, Najee's just not going to be able to keep up with the production that Hampton will be able to give. But I think at the beginning of the season, that first month and a half, maybe 2 months, Hampton will be hamstrung by Najee getting the touches that he will get, in my opinion. And I think that holds him back just a little bit here, because if he was the starter, undisputed for the full season, honestly, he'd be right up there with Genty for me. Jayden Daniels at 32, I think he's going to be a really interesting watch this year. It's so easy to come in here and say Jayden Daniels could be the quarterback one in drafts. And I think he could very well be. I would not do that, though. Jayden Daniels' sophomore slumps with quarterbacks are very, very common. Look at C.J. Stroud just 1 year ago. The guy was being heralded as having the best rookie season for a quarterback since Big Ben. Year 2 comes in and is really, really not very good in fantasy football. I'm not saying Jayden's going to suck. I obviously know that he was excellent, brought him to an NFC Championship game, but I do worry about it a little bit. I'm safeguarding myself down here with him at 32, and Breece at 33. He deserves so much better than the Jets. I just don't know what to do with him right now. I want to believe that they will end up having him being their primary back, getting him 20 carries a game, 20 opportunities per game. But the Jets are so unpredictable, and I know that he will lose touches through the air with Justin Fields. That will be a factor here. So Breece Hall, I think, is really efficient on the ground this year as he looks for a new contract, but I do worry about his overall touches in 2025. Dropping down to the next tier, I've got Terry McLaurin, 34, Ladd McConkey, 35. These two guys right here, interchange them if you want to. Terry McLaurin, I can understand the argument. The touchdowns were super heavy last year. I still think that he's going to be the clear alpha in Washington with Deebo Samuel there. And I think it probably helps open up to the point where maybe the touchdowns aren't as big of a concern. I think this is a really explosive offense again in 2025. So I'm just not particularly worried about Terry. With Ladd, I understand the intrigue. With Ladd McConkey, I think he's going a little bit too early for me in drafts right now. So I'm staying away from Ladd for the most part in drafts on Underdog, but I can ultimately see the upside being basically what it was last year at the end of the season, which is they have really nobody else to throw to. They drafted Trey Harris, but who knows how good he's going to be right away. Ladd McConkey is 100% the most stable receiving option for the Chargers. He's going to be good in fantasy. Chuba Hubbard, 36, Jalen Hurts, 37. I'll tell you this, with Chuba Hubbard, if you've been familiar with my channel, you know my story with Chuba. Chuba was a great pick, and I was screaming from the rooftops about him last year all the way back to June. I knew this guy was going to be good, and he ended up coming through for me. Not as big on him this year. People value him a lot higher. That's just how the game goes. He's not as big of a screaming value as he is last year. Now, obviously, they drafted Trevor Etienne. I don't think that really matters. Rico Dowdle might have a little bit of involvement, but I still think Chuba is still in store for a really good season this year because he's just the better running back between him and Rico Dowdle. And I think he really fits what Dave Canales is trying to do over there. The guy's been talking good about him since he got there. I like Chuba still quite a bit. And then Jalen Hurts obviously is going to be the quarterback 4 if Jayden Daniels is still a top 3 quarterback, which I would imagine that he will be. But Jalen Hurts is not because he's not going to be good in fantasy this year. He's going to be really good. Jalen Hurts is going to continue to get the tush push. They did not outlaw that over the offseason so far, and I don't think they're going to at this point. So he's going to get those rushing touchdowns. Quarterback, as a thrower, I just don't love him. I do think that he will be very similar to last year, but that's still going to be a really good fantasy player. Dropping out to our next tier, Garrett Wilson, Sam Laporta, George Kittle at 38, 39, 40. Now, let me tell you something about these particular guys right here. I'm super uncertain, particularly with Garrett Wilson, because of obvious reasons. The guy is dealing with another quarterback change, and it sucks because he's so good. But the good thing is maybe he has a little spark with Justin Fields. I don't think so. I really don't think it's going to work out that well for him. I think if you really want to go for a better team build, Laporta and Kittle are going to be better guys to draft on your draft day. I think they're going to be better fits. I prefer Laporta over Kittle because of what I said about Jahmyr Gibbs earlier in this video, which was that, listen, when it comes to Sam Laporta, I really like these big three in Detroit because I don't think that this next offensive coordinator that they have is going to be able to capitalize on all of those guys like Ben Johnson was able to. Very few coordinators can do that at the level that Ben Johnson was doing it. I just don't think that he'll be like that. So I think he's one of the big three. I see a really good rebound season coming for him. But Kittle just signed an extension. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be another main focal point. The only thing that can hold him back right now is an injury. DeAndre Swift. Huge winner in the draft. He deserves to be discussed as a really high-end running back too. I was really big on him before the NFL draft. I drafted on Underdog some pre-NFL draft best ball, and I drafted a ton of DeAndre Swift because I knew if they didn't draft a running back, he was going to be a really good player. And I'll tell you this, Ben Johnson, as long as Swift can stay healthy, this is going to be Swift's best opportunity to be a top 15, top 12 running back in fantasy football. I really like Swift a lot. I think Swift is in really good shape this year. I think he's going to be a great pick. I've been targeting him, but the problem is, again, why you should draft now? His price is already rising on Underdog. Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Travis Hunter at 45. Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, just our two older guys. Hard to really know exactly when their drop-off is going to be, but obviously if they hit their upside, I think they're both going to be higher than this. Kamara is still the best piece of this offense here in New Orleans, so he should be in line for a really big workload. Joe Mixon, on the other hand, should be in line to carry all the carries for the Houston Texans still. Very similar to last year, though. This offensive line is worse, though. That's a major problem for injury protection for Joe Mixon. So just a little bit unsure about our older guys here. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. could easily be a massive boom play. I just don't love, again, the Kyler situation, not being able to provide top 5 wide receiver upside for only just one guy with DeAndre Hopkins makes me just a little bit uneasy to invest in Marvin Harrison Jr. But I like the player. I think he'll take the lead this year. And I think he's a little bit better than Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, in my opinion, though, is a top 50 guy this year. Now, I'm not going to even make a prediction yet of what my stat line will be for this guy because it's going to be so hard to know what this guy is going to do because this is the most unique prospect, unique athlete in the game of football that we have seen since like Bo Jackson. I mean, this guy, both sides of the ball, he's Deion Sanders Jr. This is Deion Sanders' real kid right here. Travis Hunter is going to play some defensive back, I would imagine. They're going to try him the best at wide receiver, but I could imagine this guy getting carries out of the backfield. They'll do whatever with this guy. He'll get the ball because he's just such a terrific athlete. So my point of contention here with Travis Hunter is I'm not arguing that he's going to be a better wide receiver in fantasy than Brian Thomas Jr. is, but my argument entirely is that he's going to get the ball in so many different ways. Out of the slot, out wide. They're going to put him in the backfield. They're going to do tons of things with him to make him a top 50 player in fantasy football this year. Dropping down to our last tier right here. Mike Evans, Jaylen Waddle, Joe Burrow. Mike Evans is obviously a ticking time bomb. You could very well get caught holding the bag. I don't like to believe that it's this year because I really like the player. I've always really liked Mike Evans. But the reality is it could happen at any moment now. He's 32 years old. So, you know, if you look back at like DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, like those guys expired basically at 32 as well. Mike Evans has had a lot of injuries. It very well could catch up with him this year. So I'm a little bit worried about him. Jaylen Waddle, if you'll notice, Tyreek Hill is nowhere to be found. I don't like Tyreek Hill this year. Jaylen Waddle is my other favorite best ball value right now in drafts. This is a wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 3, by the way, in fantasy football on Underdog right now. Draft Jaylen freaking Waddle. His upside is awesome. I'm not putting him much higher than this right now because I just don't still believe that Jaylen Waddle is a fantastic player still like he used to be. But I do believe that Jaylen Waddle, his ceiling is top 5. And I'm not joking about that. Joe Burrow at 48, going to be really good as well if they can keep up with protecting him. This guy is going to be under siege in 2025 because their offensive line is going to be still not particularly great. James Conner at 49, Devontae Adams at 50 to round us out. James Conner, I think it's going to be one of those guys that's going to be the opposite of Amari and Hampton. I think Conner will front load you with production. But what I actually do think is going to happen is Trey Benson ends up being a really valuable player at the back half of the season. And maybe it's not even because Conner sucks. I think Conner's still a really good player. Obviously, last year, guy was averaging basically 5 yards per carry. But James Conner has been injured a bunch. He got injured at the end of the season. The guy's almost 30 years old. It could easily become an injury situation where I think he front loads production for you and then ends up tailoring off as the season goes on. Devontae Adams is going to be a really good number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football. I think he's going to be a really solid pick in your 4th round, your 5th round, your 6th round of fantasy football drafts. So let me know what you think of the initial top 50. And if you want to see that other video where I was predicting the first 2 rounds of fantasy drafts this year, click on this video right here.